Welcome to the reteach lesson for handout 1.4, where we are learning how to craft some powerful claims and make sure we're adding specific evidence. Something that's really important here is that when I was grading the FRQ3 from our diagnostic test, I noticed that a lot of us did not score very well. And so this lesson is in direct response to that, and also, of course, to the assignments that I graded from all of you. So I want to remind you that when we're talking about AP level writing, we want to make sure we show precise thinking and skillful control over our arguments. This is going to help elevate your lessons. We're going to make sure we start with strong claims, and we're going to make sure we have very specific evidence, because on the AP test, you can't really do research. So it's really important for you to know how to come up with great evidence on your own. All right, so part one, crafting stronger, more specific claims. Now, on the AP test, it is just 1 point to get the thesis statement, and it just needs to be defensible. However, we are also working to get that sophistication point, and so that means that every single sentence needs to be strong. And when we have a strong claim, it has to be specific, making sure that you're picking a particular aspect of the argument. You have to use action-oriented language. This really goes into language use where you're using strong verbs and strong vocabulary. You're making your claim active and powerful. You have to have a clear position, it has to be very clear what you are trying to argue, and you want to connect to a broader idea. So you can link to concepts like citizenship, personal growth, career preparation, and often there's a because you want to hint at your reasoning. So these are an example of a weak claim versus a strong claim. So a weak claim would be community service is good because it helps students get into college. Well, that's not really a claim. It's actually a fact. It's not an argument, right? Yes, community service does help. We all know that. But what are you trying to argue? A strong version of this would be high schools should require community service because it provides students with invaluable skills and experiences that make them more competitive in the college admissions process and beyond. Now, this is more of an opinion because there's a lot of people who would say, oh, you don't need community service for college. And so you are arguing, like, yes, this helps you be competitive, especially with schools that happen to have a really low percentage of students who get accepted and really high drop rates. Notice also the types of words I used. High school should require invaluable skills and experience, makes them more competitive. So the word choice is also much stronger. Rather than saying good, we're replacing those words. Instead of just saying helps, we really be specific about what it does. Moving on to our evidence and examples. We want to make sure evidence is specific and detailed, but we don't want to make up numbers and facts, right? So how do we do that? Well, we need to avoid overly general statements. So just saying technology is good, community service is good. Like, yeah, that's really general. We can't not add context or detail, right? Instead of saying like, oh, the civil rights movement would be a great example. Well, how? Like, tell me about it. Be very careful to not be too broad. Add in context, add in detail, and be careful not to be too vague or unsupported. So if you're saying studies show that community service makes people happier, that's just really vague. There's not a lot of detail to it. So how do we make that better? Well, first, you can make your general knowledge specific. A lot of us have ideas in our head, right? We can add plausible details that make it sound credible without making things up. You can describe a specific scenario. Specific scenarios are really, really great because they come from your experience. They're not just general statements, and they can connect straight back to that claim. You can also make sure you add the situational detail. Make sure you try to describe as much as you can about the scenario. Make sure you have concrete action or concrete outcome that shows exactly what happened or what was achieved, and try to answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how. All right, so let's look at an example of that. So a weak evidence would say, studies show that volunteering is good for you. Yeah, it sounds fancy, but in the end, it's not really saying anything. Instead, I can say research from organizations like the Corporation for National Community Service. So notice how it's like I'm bringing them in, but I'm not claiming exactly, right? Suggest that teens, that word is a key word. Saying suggest means that you're not making a claim, right? It's more of you're adding in those details and you're kind of lying, but without making stuff up. Suggest that teens who volunteer are more likely to vote and participate in civic activities as adults, indicating that these habits extend far beyond high school. So notice as well that the study is very, very specific. It's not just saying that teens who volunteer are better. It says like what they do when they volunteer. And then there's also connection back to the claim, which is indicating that these habits extend far beyond high school. So this is a really strong piece of evidence, right? And all of it together adds in the connection to the claim already. The last thing is to look at the seamless integration of evidence, right? We don't want to just drop in evidence where we just kind of put it down without having anything strong. So you want to have a lead in, you want to introduce the evidence, set the context, you want to connect your ideas to the evidence, connect it back to the claim, and you want to clearly state where the information comes from according to, as demonstrated by. So be careful not to just put evidence without really building the evidence around the claim, right? And this is before you go into the commentary, but this should really build into the commentary as well. So this is kind of how that would look. So the claim is later school start times benefit students, which of course is not a great claim. But if we're looking at evidence, when Seattle delayed, so notice it's specific, Seattle. When Seattle delayed its high school start times by just 1 hour, students slept an average of 34 minutes longer each night and performed better on tests, suggesting that even small adjustments can significantly improve both rest and academic outcomes. In this case, even the made up numbers are much more vague, right? 34 minutes doesn't seem to be really out of the blue. It doesn't seem to be like oh my gosh, like this is a lot. Not to mention, possibly I could know because maybe I'm from Seattle or maybe I've taught in Seattle. I mean, there's plenty of places that I've taught that have had different school start times. So this is very probable that I could know exactly what it is, right? Um, and so notice that the suggesting that's what ties it back to my claim. So this is blended grammatically, it's explained immediately, and it supports my claim with a very clear connection. So as we're rewriting our paragraph, some reminders is to make sure you're looking at your language as well. We really want to make sure we're using words that instead of help, we're using assist. We're looking to replace weaker words with stronger vocabulary. This helps bring up your sophistication and makes your paragraph much more academic and formal. As always, if you have any questions, please send me an email.